His last chance for survival depended on this job interview. But when a wealthy woman begged him to help fix her car, David stopped and helped her. Because of this selfless choice, he was dismissed and missed the interview. He did not know who she was. He did not know that helping her would change his whole life. Who was this powerful woman? And how did this single act of kindness turn a day of ruin into a destiny of untold blessings? Sit back and find out as we delve into this true story.
David Namdi stood in front of the cracked mirror in his tiny apartment, adjusting the knot of his cheap tie. The suit was old, ironed a little too thin in places, but was the best he had left. He had not worn it for 2 years. As he looked at his reflection, he did not see the successful man he once was. He saw a stranger, a man worn thin by anxiety, fear, and the slow, grinding pressure of failure. His eyes, once bright with the certainty of an engineer who built things, were now filled with a desperate hope he barely believed in. He whispered quietly, "God, let this be my lucky day. I need this." It was hard to believe how different his life had been just 3 years ago. David was not just a successful civil engineer. He was a master builder. He worked on complex infrastructure projects, bridges that spanned great rivers, and road networks that connected cities. He was brilliant, and he was paid like it. He drove a clean SUV and owned a beautiful, semi-detached house in Lekki Phase 1. The kind of place where the silence was expensive. He and his wife, Ruth, were the picture of success. Ruth was beautiful, ambitious, and loved the life they had built. David loved her deeply. He loved coming home to her, seeing her smile, and knowing that his hard work provided the stability for them both. He felt strong, protected, and truly blessed. But in Lagos, the difference between having everything and having nothing could be the span of a single afternoon. The world David built shattered unexpectedly. His multinational firm lost its main government contracts, followed by a shocking collapse. He was laid off. The news came quickly, cold and final. At first, David had hope. He tried to start his own small firm, pouring most of his remaining savings into equipment and licenses. He told Ruth, "It's just a setback. I know the business. We will be fine." But the small firm failed. The market was too aggressive, and without the political connections of the big players, David's talent was not enough. The Lekki house was sold. The SUV went next. Each sale felt like a physical tearing away of his dignity. They moved to a small, cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Surulere. It was clean, but the air was different. The noise was constant. The shame was a shadow that followed them both. The move was when the warmth left Ruth. It was slow at first, like a slow-burning charcoal fire that loses its heat and starts smoking bitterly. She stopped asking him about his job hunt. She started leaving the house often, avoiding him, saying she needed to see friends in better areas. When she did speak, her words were not questions or comfort. They were criticisms. "Another application? You know that job is for someone younger, David. Why are you wasting paper? Look at this house, David. Look at the stain on the wall. I never thought I would live like this. My friends pity me." Ruth did not leave his side physically, but her heart had packed its bags months ago. David felt the coldness more than any lack of money. It was the crushing sense that his failure had made the woman he loved resent him, hate him even. He remembered one night, sitting over a small plate of rice, when he tried to hold her hand. She pulled away quickly. "Don't touch me, David. You smell like the bus. I married an engineer, not a man who comes home smelling of bus seats and disappointment." That night, David didn't sleep. He understood then that Ruth's love had a price tag, and he had stopped paying the monthly installment. A week ago, the phone call came. Zenith Infrastructure, one of the largest construction firms in the country. They needed a chief project manager. They had found his old resume through a desperate contact. David spent his last available naira on dry cleaning the suit and buying the cheapest pair of new socks he could find. He went over his technical plans for managing complex sites. He rehearsed his answers until 2 a.m. This was not just a job interview. It was a test of his worth. It was the key to returning to Lekki, to rebuilding his dignity, and to winning back the respect and perhaps the love of Ruth. If he succeeded, Ruth would look at him differently. She would smile again. Their life would restart. If he failed, David refused to think about failure. Failure meant silence. Failure meant the end of the marriage. Failure meant confirming every single bitter word Ruth had ever said about him. He picked up his briefcase, ran his hand over his close-shaved face, and took a deep, shuddering breath. He looked out the window. The clock on the wall read 6:45 a.m. The Zenith office was across the city, far away in the privileged heart of Ikoyi. He had to move now. David walked out of the apartment, locking the door behind him with a quiet click. He steps onto the chaotic street, clutching his resume. The bus station is already choked with people. He knows if he fails today, he loses more than a job. He loses everything. But the traffic ahead on the road to Ikoyi is already a suffocating nightmare. David squeezed himself into the packed public bus, holding his clean briefcase above the crowd to protect it. He looked at his cheap wristwatch. It was 7 a.m. His interview was exactly 1 hour away, clear across the city in Ikoyi. The journey was a nightmare. The Lagos morning traffic was a sea of red brake lights, loud horns, and frustrated drivers. Every minute that passed felt like a knife twisting in David's gut. He knew his destiny was ticking away, stuck on the Eco Bridge. I have to move, he thought, his heart hammering against his ribs. If I show up late, they won't even let me in. They will see me as a failure before I even speak. At 7:10 a.m., seeing the bus had not moved more than a few meters in 10 minutes, David made a desperate decision. He pushed his way out, apologized quickly, and hit the street running. He knew of a desperate shortcut, a narrow, almost abandoned industrial road that ran parallel to the main highway. It was dusty, rough, and known for being deserted, but it could save him 15 crucial minutes. He took the risk. He ran down the uneven path, his old suit jacket sticking to his back with sweat. The path was exactly as he remembered. Quiet, lined with overgrown brush and broken concrete, and empty. Just as he felt a surge of hope, believing he had outsmarted the traffic, he saw it. In the middle of the narrow lane, blocking the path completely, was a large, sleek black Range Rover. It was clearly expensive, polished to a mirror shine, but it was smoking from the engine, and one of the tires was flat. Standing beside it was a woman. She was elegant, dressed in a sharp, expensive suit, a woman clearly used to command and comfort. Her face, however, was a mask of intense frustration and helplessness. This was Dr. Victoria, though David did not know her name or her power yet. She was pacing frantically, hitting the side of her phone, clearly running out of battery and running out of time. She was stranded, and she was alone. David stopped running. His chest burned from the exertion, and his mind raced. I need to pass. I need to get to the end of this road. He could try to squeeze past the car, apologize quickly, and keep running. The woman was not his problem. His job, his marriage, his entire future, that was his problem. He glanced at his watch. 7:20 a.m. He had 20 minutes to find a taxi, reach Ikoyi, and present himself cool and composed at the Zenith Infrastructure office. Every second spent here was a minute of failure. He watched Dr. Victoria. She looked at the flat tire, then at the smoking engine, then back at her dead phone with genuine despair. She looked powerful, but right now, she was just a woman in distress, trapped by a machine. An old memory, a quiet lesson from his father, came to him then. His father, a humble tailor, had always told him, "Son, a person's character is measured not when they have everything to gain, but when they have absolutely nothing to give." David had nothing to give. He had one last chance for survival, and this woman was standing directly in the way of it. The internal war was swift, silent, and brutal. He simply could not turn his back and run past her. His conscience, that internal voice that Ruth told him made him a useless savior, won the fight. He slowly walked toward the woman, his anxiety spiking, but his mind settling into a strange calm. He lowered his briefcase gently to the dusty road. He reached into the slim side pocket of his old bag and pulled out a small canvas roll of tools he always carried, a relic from his happy days as a hands-on engineer. Dr. Victoria saw him approach. Her eyes narrowed in surprise, then widened with a desperate plea. David stopped a respectful distance away. "Good morning, Ma," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "I am an engineer. I think I can help you with that." Dr. Victoria rushed toward him, her elegance momentarily forgotten. Her eyes were wide with relief, and the deep stress was clear on her face. Dr. Victoria looked straight into David's tired eyes, her voice cracking slightly with intense urgency. "Please," she says, "I'm going to miss the most important meeting of my life. Can you help me?" David nods, knowing he is answering the wrong call. The clock on his wrist reads 7:25 a.m. The decision was made. David was helping the woman. The minute he opened the small, worn toolbox, the anxiety over the interview did not disappear. It simply became secondary to the task at hand. "Ma, my name is David. I am a civil engineer. If you can trust me, I will check the engine first. Then we can look at the tire," David said, his voice calm, trying to instill some of his confidence into the frantic woman. "Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Victoria," she replied, relief washing over her face. She stepped back, giving him space, but her eyes never left his hands. David went straight to work. He was a civil engineer, used to building bridges, but his father had taught him that all great structures, even simple ones, relied on the small details. He knelt by the flat tire, quickly removing the lug nuts, and then moved the engine. The fault was minor, a simple overheating caused by a loose hose connection that was spitting steam. He tightened the clamp with a pair of pliers from his kit. He then swiftly dealt with the tire, using the car's emergency jack and working with an efficiency that showed his high level of skill, despite the rust on his tools. The road dust mixed with the grease from the engine and the sweat pouring from his forehead. It ran in streaks down his face, ruining the clean collar of his suit shirt. He looked less like an engineer applying for a top managerial job and more like a desperate roadside mechanic. The clock kept ticking mercilessly. 7:35 a.m. David knew he was gone. He was already too far away, too dirty, and too late. The desperation faded, replaced by a strange, numb resignation. He stopped working for survival and started working only out of character. He fixed the flat tire, replaced the lug nuts, and lowered the car. He slammed the hood of the Range Rover shut. "Try to start it now, Ma," David instructed. Dr. Victoria James got into the car. The powerful engine cranked, coughed, and then roared to life. It sounded rough, but it was running. A massive wave of relief washed over Victoria James. She stepped out, her eyes shining with gratitude. "David, you've saved me. Thank you. I can't believe it. You are incredible." She reached quickly into her handbag, pulling out a thick, folded bundle of crisp Naira notes, a significant amount that would have covered David's rent for months. She pushed the money toward him. "Please take this. You must take this for your time and your kindness." David looked at the money, his stomach twisted with the need, with the thought of what that cash could do for him and Ruth. But he looked down at his dirty hands, then at the elegant woman, and shook his head. "Ma, please keep it," David said, his voice quiet but firm. "I am happy to help. May God bless your journey, Dr. Victoria James." He refused to take the money, his dignity still intact, even if his future was not. He left the money on the seat, grabbed his briefcase, and started sprinting again, not waiting for her reply. He had 20 minutes to reach Ikoyi. It was an impossible race. David arrived at the Zenith Infrastructure Building 15 minutes later at 8:15 a.m. He was a mess. Sweat had soaked through his jacket. There was engine grease on his cheek and dust on his shoes. He staggered into the air-conditioned marble lobby, trying to catch his breath. The receptionist, a beautiful young woman with a cold, smooth face, barely looked up from her computer. David walked to the desk, trying to sound professional despite the desperate gasping for air. "Good morning. My name is David Namdi. I have an interview for Chief Project Manager. I apologize for my delay." The receptionist slowly lifted her head. She looked him up and down, from his dusty shoes to his sweat-stained collar. Her expression did not change. "Mr. Namdi," she said, her voice dry and precise, "the 8 a.m. slot has been filled. The selection panel is already meeting with the candidate we chose instead. We cannot reschedule." David felt his knees buckle. "Please, I can explain. It was only 15 minutes. I am a highly qualified civil engineer. I have 10 years of experience." She held up a manicured hand, cutting him off cleanly. "Sir, I understand, but Zenith Infrastructure values punctuality above all else. It is the first requirement for management. If you cannot manage your time, you cannot manage a project." The words were cold, delivered like a final sentence. Punctuality is non-negotiable. David's mind went silent. He stood there frozen, the weight of the last 3 years, the loss, the failures, Ruth's criticism, all crashing down on him at once. He had thrown away the last lifeline for a momentary act of kindness. The automatic doors of Zenith Infrastructure slid open behind David, inviting him back out into the noise and heat. He walked out, his briefcase feeling impossibly heavy, his body numb. The triumph of having fixed Dr. Victoria James's car evaporated completely. All that remained was the crushing reality of his loss. He thought of Ruth. He thought of her face. Her beautiful eyes narrowed with disappointment. She had warned him that his character would destroy him. David had sacrificed his job for a stranger. Now he faced the judge, jury, and execution of his own failure. He realized the most painful part of the day was still waiting for him back in that cramped apartment in Surrey. He hailed a bus, climbed it without caring about the smell, and rode in silence, defeated. He knew he was walking toward the end of his marriage. David let himself into the apartment. The air inside was heavy and quiet, different from the noise of the street. It was 4 p.m. He had spent hours wandering, trying to figure out how to put his feelings into words that Ruth would understand. Ruth was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. She did not look up when he walked in. She did not ask how the interview went. That silence was louder than any shout. David walked to the small kitchen, took a glass of water, and swallowed slowly. He took off his dusty, crumpled suit jacket and draped it over the chair. It felt like shedding his last layer of armor. He walked over to the sofa, sitting across from her. "Ruth," he started, his voice a low, tired rasp. She finally looked up. Her eyes were hard, sharp, and impatient. "Well, tell me, are we still poor, or did we finally win?" David flinched at the cruelty of her question. He knew he could not lie. "I did not get the job, Ruth." She stopped scrolling. The phone dropped onto the cushion beside her. "What do you mean you did not get the job? You are David Namdi. You were the best civil engineer in the state. What went wrong?" David took a deep breath. "I was late. I missed the appointment." Ruth stared at him, motionless, for a long moment. It was a calm before the storm. "You missed it? After all this time? After all we have sacrificed? You missed the 8 a.m. interview." "Yes," David admitted quietly. "But I was on a shortcut on the way when I saw her." David began to explain everything. The abandoned industrial road, the sleek black Range Rover, the elegant woman, Dr. Victoria James, whose phone was dead and whose engine was smoking. He spoke of his father's words, of the internal choice he had to make. He finished his explanation, looking at her, searching for some flicker of understanding, some hint of the kind woman he married. Instead, Ruth stood up. Her face was contorted, her hands clenched into fists. This was not just anger. It was pure, cold, destructive fury. "You saw her? And you stopped? David, are you a fool? Are you deliberately trying to ruin us?" Her voice was rising, sharp enough to cut glass. "I am not trying to ruin us, Ruth. I am trying to be a man of character. I couldn't just leave her stranded. She was alone and desperate," David pleaded, desperation filling his tone. "Character?" Ruth laughed, a dry, bitter sound that scraped David's heart. "Character does not pay the rent, David. Character does not feed me. Character does not buy me new dresses when my friends are living in Lekki." She walked toward him, leaning over, her beautiful face terrifyingly close. "You are weak. You are useless. You had one job, to save this marriage, to save our lives, and you threw away for a stranger. Who was she, David? A queen? A governor's wife? No, just a woman you wanted to impress with your good heart." David felt tears sting his eyes, not from anger, but from the brutal accuracy of her words. She was attacking the very core of who he was. "You prefer playing the village savior instead of saving your own family. You always do this. You always choose a stranger's need over my security." "Ruth, stop. Please, David cried out, standing up, desperate to stop the verbal assault. Stop? No, I won't stop. I am tired of smelling the bus on you. I am tired of living in this slum. You are a good engineer, David, but you are a poor provider and a foolish, foolish man. Suddenly, Ruth stopped shouting. She straightened up, took a slow breath, and turned her back to him. David watched her walk quickly into the bedroom. He heard the sudden, sharp, shocking sound of a zipper being pulled across leather. It was the sound of her suitcase. David froze. He watched numbly as Ruth walked out of the bedroom, dragging a large, expensive suitcase, a gift he had bought her during the good times. The bag was heavy. It was full. What are you doing, Ruth? David whispered. Ruth did not look at him. She placed the suitcase by the door and put her purse on top of it. She faced him, her expression colder than ice. I am done, David, she stated simply. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot live with failure. I cannot live with a man who chooses flat tires over his family's survival. Are you leaving me? The question felt hollow, unreal. I am leaving the situation, she corrected him, her voice devoid of emotion. I am going to stay with my friend, Grace, in Victoria Island. When you are back on your feet, when you have a title, an office, and a real income, then call me. Until then, the marriage is over. She had already planned this. The failure of the Zenith interview was simply the final excuse she needed. David felt the floor drop out from under him. He was not just dismissed by his employer. He was utterly rejected by his wife. Ruth, don't do this. I will find something else. Give me time. Please. Ruth picked up her suitcase handle. You had one job today, David. You failed, and you failed us both. She walked toward the door. The final sound was not the slam of the door. It was the metallic, grating scrape of the suitcase wheels as she dragged the bag down the outside corridor. David heard the distant sound of a taxi horn beeping, then the engine starting up, and then the sound fading into the constant hum of Legos. David did not move. He stood in the middle of the quiet, cramped room, looking at the empty space where his wife had stood. His briefcase lay forgotten on the floor. His eyes were wide open, but he saw nothing. He had sacrificed his last hope for a stranger. He had been dismissed by a corporation. And now he had been abandoned by his wife, not for his lack of money, but for his kindness. He sank slowly to his knees, dropping onto the worn, dusty carpet. He did not cry. There were no tears left. There was just a profound, hollow silence. David Namdi was a man with nothing left. His career, his home, his dignity, and his marriage were all gone in a single, brutal day. David sat alone on the floor of the silent apartment, the sound of her taxi fading into the distance. He had nothing left to lose. Absolutely nothing. It was the end of his story. Where does a broken man go when the entire world, including the person who vowed to love him forever, has rejected him? The weeks that followed Ruth's departure were the darkest David had ever known. The silence of the apartment was a constant, loud reminder of his failure. He was alone, broke, and the shame was a physical weight on his shoulders. He could not afford to mourn. He needed to eat, and he needed to pay the tiny rent. His engineering contact had dried up. Nobody wanted to risk hiring a talented man who had fallen so far. David had to find the most honest, brutal work available. He found it at a massive road construction site outside the city limits. It was a government contract for a new highway link. He showed up and asked for any work they had. David became a common laborer. His job was to haul heavy bags of cement, clear rubble, and lift the crushing weight of concrete blocks under the brutal Nigerian sun. This life was 1,000 times harder than the emotional pain Ruth had inflicted. His hands, one saw from working with blueprints and computers, quickly became hard, calloused, and cut. His body ached from the moment he woke up until the moment he collapsed into sleep. He was unrecognizable. His suit was replaced by dusty, worn overalls, and his face was constantly covered in the white film of cement dust. But David refused a break. He used his engineer's mind not to design, but to survive. He knew the safest way to lift heavy materials to prevent injury. He moved with a quiet, efficient strength. He worked harder than any man on the site, not out of greed, but out of a desperate need to earn his dignity back, one painful hour at a time. He learned quickly that on the site, character meant nothing. Money meant everything. Yet, David held on to his core belief. He often helped the younger, weaker laborers, showing them the right way to lift, sharing his small ration of water. He was a silent, respected figure among the men. Every night, before he slept, David would pray. He did not pray for money or for a new job. He prayed for strength, and he prayed for understanding. He wrestled constantly with the memory of that day, the decision to help Dr. Victoria James. God, he would whisper, I did the right thing. My heart told me to stop. Why did my reward for kindness have to be the loss of everything I loved? Was it a test? And if so, why did I fail so completely? His faith was tested, bent severely, but it did not break. He still believed that the universe kept account. He still believed his sacrifice meant something, even if the reward was not immediate. One morning, the atmosphere on the site changed. There was a sudden frantic cleaning, and the site manager was sweating and shouting orders. The reason? The CEO of PrimeLink Infra, the lead construction firm, was making a rare personal inspection. A convoy of sleek black vehicles, including a familiar-looking Range Rover, rolled onto the dusty site. The laborers immediately froze, holding their cement blocks midair. David was bent over, helping two younger men adjust the placement of a heavy culvert pipe. He was caked in dried mud and sweat, his face obscured by the shadow of his cap. From the lead Range Rover, a figure emerged. She was dressed in an impeccable, light-colored suit that seemed entirely out of place on a dirty construction site. She wore expensive sunglasses, and her presence commanded instant silence. It was Dr. Victoria James. She walked slowly along the dusty route, flanked by managers in starched white shirts, listening intently as they rattled off progress reports. She was a picture of power David remembered, magnificent, commanding, and utterly wealthy. Then she stopped. Dr. Victoria James wasn't looking at the blueprints or the machinery. She was looking at the line of silent laborers. Her gaze moved slowly, passing over face after face, until it landed on David. David did not look up. He was focused on his task, his mind consumed by the rhythmic pain of his back muscles. Dr. Victoria James paused. She took a step closer, then another. The sight of the man in the dirty overalls, straining under the weight of manual labor, hit her with a sudden, powerful shock. The dust, the sweat, the harsh sunlight. It was all there, but she saw something in the disciplined set of his shoulders, in the familiar, quiet strength of his face. She remembered the hands that refused her money, the quiet dignity of the man who saved her from embarrassment that morning on the shortcut road. The face was dirtier, older, but she was certain it was David. A wave of intense, professional curiosity, mixed with profound respect, washed over her. The man who missed his crucial interview to help her was now reduced to working as a common laborer on her own company's site. Dr. Victoria James spent the next 10 minutes observing David in silence. She watched him work. She saw him patiently correct a younger man's lifting technique. She saw his expertise shining through the dust. Dr. Victoria James finally turns to her site manager and points a precise finger at David, who is lifting a heavy block. Her voice is low and firm. That man, she says, find out everything about him. I need his full name and history by tomorrow morning. The day after Dr. Victoria James's visit to the site was tense. David worked with the same silent strength, but his mind was racing. He hadn't forgotten the intense, scrutinizing way she had looked at him. Was he in trouble? Did he accidentally damage something on the site? Later that afternoon, the site manager approached him. The manager was nervous, his voice hushed with a new respect David had not heard before. David Namdi. The manager said, holding out a clean set of clothes. Clean yourself up. You are to report immediately to the PrimeLink Infra headquarters. The CEO, Dr. Victoria James, wants to see you. David's heart stopped. The CEO, the elegant woman whose car he had fixed. He stood frozen, unable to process the command. He quickly changed, using a tiny pool of water to wipe the cement dust from his face and hands. He looked down at the clean clothes. He felt like a boy putting on a giant suit. Unknown to David, Dr. Victoria James had not wasted a minute. That morning, her site manager had delivered David's full history, his brilliance, his success at the multinational, the collapse of his firm, and his desperate move to Surrey. Dr. Victoria James sat in her mahogany office, staring at David's old resume. The name, the qualifications, the experience with complex infrastructure. It all confirmed a man of integrity she had already met. He wasn't just a laborer. He was a master builder reduced by circumstance. She remembered the way he had calmly refused her large cash offer. She remembered him saying, "May God bless your journey, Ma. I am happy to help." She realized that David's character, the same character that Ruth had called foolish, was his highest qualification. He had sacrificed his last hope to save a stranger from delay. Now, she held the power to give him back everything he lost, and more. David was driven across the city. The ride was silent, tense. As the car pulled up to the glittering glass tower of the Prime Link Infra headquarters, David felt a wave of pure terror. He was convinced he was about to be exposed or humiliated. He was escorted through plush carpets and quiet corridors, finally pausing outside a large, heavy door. He took a slow, painful breath, remembering the cold lobby of Zenith Infrastructure, where he was judged on punctuality alone. The door opened. David walked into an opulent conference room, flooded with light and views of the Lagos skyline. He stopped just inside the room, his eyes adjusting. Sitting at the head of the long table, smiling gently, was Dr. Victoria James. "Mr. Namdi, welcome," she said, her voice warm and clear. David felt an emotional wave crash over him. Relief, shock, and a sudden, sharp understanding flooded his senses. He quickly lowered his gaze. "Dr. Victoria James," he managed, his voice barely a whisper. "It is good to see you." "Please, sit down," she invited. David sat on a luxurious leather chair, feeling small and out of place. Dr. Victoria James leaned forward, resting her hands on the table. She skipped all formalities. "David, I know who you are. I know you were a top civil engineer. I know you lost your firm. And I know you were applying for a chief project manager at Zenith that morning." David closed his eyes briefly, shame washing over him. "I apologize, Ma. I should have explained." "No," she interrupted, her voice firm. "You should not have explained. You showed me everything I needed to know." She paused, letting the truth hang in the air. David, Prime Link Infra, is looking for leadership that is not only brilliant but possesses unshakable character. Many people have talent, but few have the heart to sacrifice their survival for a principle. She pushed a contract across the table. "Mr. Namdi, I am not offering you a chief project manager position. I am offering you the role of director of special projects here at Prime Link Infra. This is a higher, more demanding role. It comes with significant salary, a driver, and a company apartment in Ikoyi." David stared at the document. Director. Ikoyi. It was everything he had lost, multiplied tenfold. He felt dizzy. His hands began to shake violently. "You missed an interview to help me, Mr. Namdi," Dr. Victoria James said, her gaze steady and powerful. "That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Your integrity is worth more than any resume." David could not speak. The tears that would not fall when Ruth abandoned him now streamed down his face. They were tears of validation, of overwhelming relief. He wasn't a fool. His kindness hadn't ruined him. It had saved him. He simply nodded, unable to form words. He accepted the contract. Within 6 months, David Namdi was a new man. He was leading major infrastructure projects, working side by side with Dr. Victoria James, who became his mentor. His technical skill combined with his integrity made him an invaluable asset. He was financially secure, professionally respected, and had moved into a spacious, beautiful new apartment in Ikoyi. He had everything back. The universe had kept account, and the repayment was magnificent. He was at peace, but his victory was not complete. David sits in his new executive office, staring out over the Lagos skyline. He has everything back, and he is at peace. He knows that Ruth, somewhere out there, will soon hear about his spectacular success. The question is, what will he do when the woman who abandoned his character returns to reclaim his fortune? Life moved quickly for David Namdi, but the change was not a violent, anxious rush like before. It was a smooth, peaceful, steady climb. David didn't just rebuild his career. He built a new, stronger foundation for his life. He bought a beautiful, spacious home in Ikoyi, far grander than the house he lost in Lekki. He became known in the industry not just for his engineering genius, but for the quiet integrity he brought to every project. More importantly, he found a profound, lasting peace. He was no longer trying to prove his worth. His value had already been proven on a dusty shortcut road to a powerful stranger. David also found love again. He met Chinyu, a woman who worked in social development. She was kind, grounded, and loved David's generous heart more than she cared about his car or his title. They married quietly, and their home was filled with a warm, steady happiness that David had never known with Ruth. He had everything he had lost, and the things he had never known he needed. He was finally complete. Years passed. David had mostly forgotten the bitterness of Ruth's betrayal, treating it like a painful but necessary part of his history. But success is a way of casting a long, bright shadow, and eventually that shadow reached Ruth. She had followed his spectacular rise online, reading articles about his awards and seeing pictures of his beautiful home. She realized the full, massive mistake she had made. One sunny Saturday morning, David was relaxing by his pool with Chinyu when the intercom buzzed. The security guard spoke with a hesitant tone. "Sir, there's a lady here. She says she says her name is Ruth." David's body tensed, then relaxed. He looked at Chinyu, who simply squeezed his hand, her support silent but absolute. "Let her in, please," David instructed. Ruth walked through the gate, dressed in clothes that looked expensive but were clearly strained by her years of disappointment. Her eyes scanned the Ikoyi mansion, wide with shock and regret. When she saw David, calm, confident, utterly successful, she began to cry. She ran to him, falling to her knees on the polished floor. "David, oh, David, I knew you would do it. I knew you were brilliant." She tried to grab his hands, but David stepped back gently. He told Chinyu to wait inside, and he faced his past alone. Ruth looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "I am so sorry, David. I was foolish. I was afraid of the poverty. I was selfish. But I am back now. We can fix this. Look at all you have built. I want to be your wife again." David listened calmly. He saw the genuine pain in her eyes, but he also saw the genuine hunger for his wealth. He saw the same fear that had made her abandon him years ago. "Ruth," David said, his voice level, gentle and final, "I forgive you. I truly do. I understand you were afraid, and you were focused on money, but I cannot go back." He looked her straight in the eye. "You did not leave me because I was poor, Ruth. You left me because of my character. You left me because I chose to help a stranger over my own desperate need. You call that weakness, and you walked out. You walked out on the engineer who was down, not on the man who was poor. And now you see the reward for that character, and you want to return. I cannot build a future with someone who only trusts me when the reward is already visible." He offered her a small, sealed envelope. Inside was a substantial check, enough to help her get back on her feet and start a new, honest life. "Go home, Ruth. Fix your life. I wish you well." David turned and walked away, back toward the happiness waiting for him. Ruth remained kneeling on the floor, crying softly, clutching the envelope. She finally understood the truth. She had lost a good man, and she could never get him back. David walked into his home with peace in his heart. He had his life back. He had hope, and he had proof that kindness, even when painful, always comes back in a greater way. Life teaches us something very important through David's story. Sometimes the people we help in our darkest moments become the same people the universe uses to lift us up again. Sometimes the road we take out of kindness may look painful at first, but in the end, it leads to blessings we never expected. And sometimes, the same people who laugh at you today will watch your success tomorrow from a distance. So never stop being kind. Never stop believing. Never stop doing good, because kindness always returns bigger, brighter, and stronger than before. What do you think about David's journey? Did he make the right decision to help Dr. Victoria James? Did he make the right decision to refuse Ruth's return? Please share your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to read from you. And my wonderful viewers, there's another very interesting story coming in a few days. So, please subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified immediately I upload the next story. If you enjoyed this one, do not forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching.